Hey guys, it's Troy here, and I wanted to share with you one of my most recent additions to my pen collection. If you've been watching for any length of time on this channel, you know that I love both vintage and modern pens, and this happens to be a vintage pen, and it's over a century old. I also tend to like the brand Waterman, both modern and vintage, and this happens to be a vintage Waterman, and it is a Waterman 514. And when you look at the old numbering system for Waterman, 5 indicates the idea that it has the 14 karat gold overlay on both the barrel and the cap. And the 1 tells you it's probably an eyedropper, and the 4 tells you that it has a number 4 nib on it. I've got some Waterman 12s here, which is basically a black chase hard rubber or a mottled red rubber, and has a number 2 nib on it. And those are also eyedropper fillers. I've got a bunch of old eyedropper fillers here, some branded and some that are more of a generic with no branding on them at all. But this particular one is something that I picked up at an auction house site. And I have a love-hate relationship with that particular auction site. For starters, not everybody who works at that site knows everything about the pens that they're putting out, and they're not always great in their detail nor in some of the pictures of the details that I want. So sometimes it's a gamble as to what I'm getting. Number 2, some of the bidders that go to that site way overpay for some of the pens, not for all. This happens to be one that I got at a pretty good bargain, in my opinion. I got this particular pen a lot less than what I'm seeing them in the retail market. And the other thing, I have a love-hate relationship with that particular auction house. They only ship by UPS or FedEx, and quite honestly, they're shipping for this pen $36. $36. And be honest with you, whether it was just a single pen, it also happened to come with something like this. And this was just an old letter opener, and I have not polished this up. This is just as it came to me. So I'm going to have to spend some time, and it's got the Philadelphia Liberty Bell on it. So it's got the sesquicentennial logo on that. So I may spend some time getting that nice and clean, but it came together with this particular pen. Originally, when I looked up this pen, the 514, the eyedropper, in a book, it said it was circa 1905. Well, so, I took some pictures and I shared it to a group and put it on Instagram and with the information that I had, and David Nishimura chimed in and he commented on it, says, well, it's not 1905, but it's probably not far off from there, especially if it's got that gold-filled clip on it. And if you look at it, and I'll show you a close-up picture because I do actually have some close-ups. But I really like that particular pattern on that, and I'm trying to remember, I thought that was a trefoil pattern. I'd have to look it up again. I may actually have some information on that here saved on my computer. So, anyway, when I got this, it was dirty. It was filthy, nasty, and grungy. And I knew that it was going to need some good polishing. So I took a jeweler's cloth to start with, and I took off a lot of the oxidation that was on the outside, especially on that gold. And it started to shine up fairly nice. And then I took some I took some metal cleaner and I polished it up, and it really started to shine up really nice. It looked really good, and I polished up all the hard rubber parts to it. One of the things about an eyedropper is you may be able to see that line right there on that section. This part actually just unscrews totally. This will come right off, and if you want, why don't I just go ahead and get you an eyedropper pen, and I'll show you how they operate. Alright, I grabbed a couple of Waterman 12s out of my drawer, and this was the first Waterman 12 that I had, the black chased hard rubber. It's got that clip, that riveted clip on it, and they are a slip top. And just as with this one, it operates the exact same way. You just take it and you unscrew this little part out of the barrel, and this is what it looks like. You've got your feed right there that goes all the way to the back end of that section, And this has got a number 2 nib on it. This has got a number 4 nib, and the 514 that I'm talking about, and I will gladly show you some close-ups of that. So basically you've got an empty tube, and that's all there is to it. And then you would inject ink into this, and this is your ink reservoir. You don't use a converter, you don't use a cartridge or any such thing, you don't use a lever, there's no ink sac. Basically, that is your ink reservoir, and that's the purpose or the theory behind an eyedropper. So, close this back up. And I also mentioned that I had a really beautiful one in a red mottled hard rubber. Really, really like that particular pen. It's absolutely gorgeous, and they both write extremely well. This one here writes well now. It didn't write fantastically well when I first got it, but it is a slip cap, so you pull that off. And I've got some close-up pictures of this nib, like I just told you about. And it does say right here on this band here, Waterman's Ideal Fountain Pen, right there. So I do have some close-up pictures of that. But it's a very pretty pattern, and I do like that. You know, it's long enough to sit in my hand. The 14 is a little better than the 12 in terms of its length. And about the only part I really couldn't get clean, I worked on this right here. I may end up still trying to work on this right here, but this is only part right in here that I couldn't get as clean and nice as I wanted, is right encrusted in here. But when I got this thing, I originally could not get this section off from the barrel at all. This would not come apart. And I know you're not supposed to soak pens, and I didn't soak it. So what I did do is I took this particular pen, I took a shot glass or a small juice glass, filled it with warm water, or not totally full, but I put this down inside that glass and put that glass inside of my ultrasonic cleaner and ran it through a cycle. And that was enough to get a lot of that crudted up ink off from not only that seam where that barrel and that section come together, but also off from that nib. So then I was able to take it and knock out that nib, knock out that feed, go ahead and clean those up, put them through my ultrasonic cleaner yet again, okay, and clean everything up, polish it up, put everything into nice looking order, as good as I was going to be able to get it at the time, and then go ahead and reassemble it and work on it. And I got it to work fairly well. And, you know, I wasn't real happy quite yet with how this nib wrote, so I spent just a little bit of time doing some nib work on it, and now I'm really, really happy with how it writes. So let's go ahead and take this baby. And these old pens, yeah, you can post them, but I don't recommend it because it's kind of back-weighted and awkward. And so let me show you a little bit about what I was able to do in order to get this Waterman 514. A Waterman's 514. So this is an eyedropper fountain pen. So, is this number 4 nib flexible? Well, I can get a good amount of flex out of it. I can get some really good variation out of it. Or just touching the paper, that's what I get that way. So like I said, it's a lot smoother now. Barely touching the page. And that's probably barely touching the page is why I had that little skip right there. That was me, not the nib. But so far, this pen has been a very good writer. I've been pretty happy with it. I mean, I see a few little spots where I did some restoration work that probably could have gone better, like underneath that clip I can see where it's a little grungy still down in the black there. I think I missed that part a little bit. But by and large, you know, I'm not a professional. This is just for fun and for a hobby for me. I've been happy with how this came out. like I said, I may spend a little bit more time and probably with a Q-tip and do some scrubbing down in that little section. Overlays. We had a conversation just recently about a modern pen that has an overlay out of China, which it was interesting because I already had this one that I had bid on and I had won an auction which was on its way. And here I got that modern pen, and we had a discussion about overlays. And I said, well, compared to, like, let's say an old Waterman or an old Conklin at the turn of the 20th century, rather, in the late 1800s, early 1900s especially, early 1910s, anywhere in there. Those to me were the heyday of overlays, especially when they look like this. And this cleaned up so beautifully. When I first got it and took it out of the package, I took a look at it and said, oh, that's grungy looking, man. That's going to take a lot of effort. And it looked horrible. But I spent the time, cleaned it up nicely. Like I said, not 100% perfect, but it's doggone close from what I could get it. So I may still spend a little more time on it. And as far in terms of how it writes, man, that's a good writing pen. I mean, fantastically wet. And very smooth now that I did some nib work on it. Very, very happy. So a Waterman 514 eyedropper, over a century old. They just don't make them like this anymore.